Slept on Cinema is sponsored by Training Ties, the ultimate shoe tying tool. If you know someone who's struggling with shoe tying for any reason, Training Ties is the perfect solution. A 100 million piece of piffle.
Why are all disaster movies so frequently disasters?
Volcano's terrible and boring little brother.
A big, dumb summer blockbuster released a tad early.
The movie works when things are on fire, but everything else from dialogue to characters is scathingly bad.
They don't call it a disaster movie for nothing.
Pierce Brosnan's Nadir.
They ought to call this one When Bad Things Happen to Stupid People.
Rotten disaster movie from that rotten time when disaster movies had a comeback.
Welcome to this week's episode of Slept on Cinema. I'm your host, Stan Steamer.
I'm Grove Street.
This week, we're diving into Dante's Peak. As always, our criteria for the podcast is that movies that we review have to be below 50 on Rotten Tomatoes for the critics and audience score. And we structure this pod such that the first half is spoiler-free. We talk about some things to watch for in the film, take a break and go watch the movie, come back, and we talk about what we just went through. I can't wait to get into this movie. This movie is awesome. It was a bit of a surprise for me. I thought I had seen this. I'm about 10 minutes in and realized, no, I didn't see Dante's Peak. I'd seen Volcano, the other volcano movie that came out in 1997. So this was brand new for me. And I kind of can't believe I hadn't seen it before because it was awesome.
Yeah, this is definitely, I'll get into the premise here in a second, but this is definitely a movie I put on a lot at the video store I worked at because it was just fun enough and there was no bad language and it was not too violent for a disaster movie that everyone could enjoy it at the video store. We'll get into the rotten premise. Volcanologist Harry Dalton and Mayor Rachel Wando finally convinced the unbelieving populace that the big one is about to hit and they need to evacuate immediately, only to discover her two children have gone up to the mountain to get their grandmother. With Earth's clock racing against them, they must rescue the kids and grandma before the volcano explodes in a fury of flame and ash 1,000,000 times more powerful than an atomic bomb. Critics, 28%. Audience, 38%. What a premise. I'm not sure that's true, but it's very exciting.
I feel like grandma also, I mean, I guess grandma plays a pretty significant role, but she plays a really significant role in that description.
Yes, huge.
This is not a grandma movie.
It's not a grandma movie. She happens to be in the movie, but this is not centered around grandma. 1,000,000 times more powerful than an atomic bomb. That's impressive.
I mean, I don't doubt that based off of the some of the things we see in this film. So
okay.
We can get into that later. But it was something to see. So this movie, as I mentioned, it came out February 7th, 1997, and as I mistook it for Volcano, I think probably a lot of people did because this was sort of famously in the era where it seemed like every few years Hollywood would come out with the same movie twice or sort of the same style movie twice within a short period of time. And this was one of those. This was the first one. So this came out, like I said, February 7th, 1997. It actually opened up number 2 behind only the original Star Wars re-release, which I feel like we've said this before in other contexts. That doesn't even really count. Like no one's going to beat Star Wars. So
that basically means it was number 1.
Yeah, exactly. That was basically number 1 for any original movie, which is like all we care about, right? I mean,
yep.
It also bumped Jerry Maguire off the number 2 spot that week.
Wow.
So that's no small feat right there. And not only that, it was it very briefly held the record for a February opening. So it made 18.5 million its first weekend, which was more than any other movie had before. Wayne's World had the prior record.
Wow, we have a couple sneaky records on some of these movies.
Yeah, unfortunately, they got the rug pulled out from them by Star Wars again a few weeks later when The Empire Strikes Back came out and cracked that record. So they only held it for 2 weeks, but they still held it. You can't take that away from them.
It's easy to re-release movies in almost back-to-back weeks when they're remakes. Not remakes, but redone digitally edited versions of the same movie.
Yeah, I'm not even sure that record counts. So in my book, they held that record for more than 2 weeks.
Yeah, number one original movie in the box office.
Totally. Total domestic ended up 67 million, and I think worldwide was 178 million. And they ended up with a budget of 116. So I think I don't think the budget sort of folds in all the costs that went into marketing and all that. So I think this wasn't a huge moneymaker, but it actually was at the time one of the most expensive movie productions ever. Some of that comes from the fact that they were sort of in a dueling timeline with Volcano. So they greenlit the movie with $100 million budget, which is a lot back in 1997, like a really significant amount of money. And Universal decided to do it. And Fox started shooting with Volcano. And they ended up in this sort of production battle. And both just started pumping money in to see who could get their movie done first. I mean, obviously, I think this is first to the box office stands to reap some significant rewards because you're probably not going to 2 Volcano movies
unless you're a volcanologist, then of course.
Unless maybe if you're wearing a crystal around your neck. And interesting, so Fox sort of took the first move. They announced that they stopped filming in October. This actually wasn't true. They actually kept filming after this, but I guess they were trying to sort of spook Universal into thinking that they were done and they shouldn't try to beat them to the punch.
Wow, studio mind games.
Yeah. So Universal then a month later issued a press release saying that they stopped filming on November 6th. So Volcano then announced a February 28th release date, and Dante's Peak was supposed to be the following week. So they thought they had him scooped by a week. But in December, Universal then comes out and says, not so fast. We're going to come out on February 7th. And they spent an estimated $5 million to speed up the post-production aspect of the editing and beat out Volcano by a few weeks.
Well, Volcano also on our list of to-dos. So it'd be very interesting to compare that once we see both movies.
Yeah. You do wonder, it's like, if you're that confident in your movie, you're still paying that much more to get it out ahead of time, or are you just figuring people are dumb? And like, I only have room for one Volcano movie this year, and whichever one comes out first, that's what I'm going to.
Yeah, it says most things. It's probably a bit of both, but probably a little bit more of the latter.
Yeah. So, in the end, I think both of them lost money. I think this was one of these ones they probably should have had like a handshake deal. Like, all right, you come out with yours now, and I'll come out with mine 6 years from now, and everyone's forgotten about volcanoes. So it was an interesting little Hollywood studio battle. I feel like we don't get that many of these, at least that comes out in the press as much these days.
I think everyone's more aware of what's going on than they were in the 90s. I remember this happened with Armageddon and Deep Impact.
Yeah, exactly.
Very, very similar.
Yeah, it's probably also back then there were just fewer. There was less content out. So it was sort of like when one movie was battling another movie, that was a big deal. Now it would be like one movie battling 5 other movies, battling 6 series on some streaming platform, battling, YouTube videos. It's a different landscape at this point.
Absolutely. Want to get to the bolos?
Let's do it.
All right, be on the lookout. This is right in the beginning, but look for a massive cross being carried out of a town.
I saw that. And I was like, what is up? I was like, I watched it a number of times. Because at first I was like, is that what that was? And then I rewound it, and that is what that was. And in that same scene, I got another bolo here. Bolo Freddy Krueger.
Wow.
Yeah, I am pretty sure I rewound this a number of times. It's very dark. There's ash raining everywhere, but I will stand by it that Freddy Krueger is in the beginning of this movie.
Okay, well, now I'm going to go. That's the first thing I'm going to do when we're done. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch the beginning again. I did not see that. That's awesome. Bolo, or instead of Bolo, heads up for Falling Rocks.
Yeah, heads up. This one is a Grove Street special here. And I know you've at least picked up on one of these, but I'm curious if you got all of them. Bolo, 3 different Seinfeld characters.
Oh, yeah. So I'll get rid of my high talker. All right. I'll just leave it at that. Of course. Yeah. Great Seinfeld cameos in this. Bolo, the Wilhelm yell. Are you familiar with that?
I am not.
Oh, I'll explain a little bit more after the break.
I'm going to say, and this is also pretty early on, but Bolo, some just really horrific push-ups.
Yeah, you're going to get hurt. Bolo, piped in sound effects.
I'm going to say, and I'm sure somebody in the props department had a really great time with this, Bolo a lava lamp.
Bolo a sewing needle.
Great one. You may have a hard time saying it. I will say Bolo, and this is a multi-Bolo, Bolo crystals. Surprising amount of crystals in this movie.
Not rocks, crystals. Bolo a car snorkel.
Oh, yeah. Cars in this movie. Fantastic. I'm going to say Bolo one very sturdy school bus.
So sturdy. Yep. Bolo Chekhov's abandoned mine.
Yes, exactly. Saw that and you were like, I got a feeling this is coming back.
I'd see it again.
Bolo one very picturesque lampshade.
Great one. Bolo, a Beavis and Butthead reference.
That's another one of these ones that just puts you right into the 90s.
Yep, even though he looked a little bit more like Butthead.
I'm going to say Bolo, one lost balloon.
Oh, that was a good one. Yep. Bolo, miniatures.
Yes, we'll definitely get into that, I'm sure, in the second half. I'll go with, and this is sort of a sort of tool I feel like movies use when they just want to make someone seem kind of dumb. I'm going to say Bolo, someone with a toothpick in their mouth.
Not a good sign. Bolo, looks that Pierce Brosnan gets from women.
Man, I would kill for some of those looks.
Yeah, I wonder what that's like.
I'm going to say Bolo, surprisingly good cell service.
Great,
especially in 1997.
Bolo character actors.
All right, this is my last one. Bolo, one really crappy camera, which is apparently Pierce Brosnan's actual camera. He brought that from home.
Wow, that's important to him. I'll pick my last one here. Actually, I'll do two more. Bolo, clues that the volcano may be unstable. And Bolo, the best espresso east of Seattle, 1994.
Oh, I actually have one more too. Bolo, a song in the round. Love songs in the round.
A lot of bolos in this movie. All right, let's finish off before we get to talk about the movie with spoilers. What drink to pair with this movie? We'll have you go first.
There were a lot of good choices, and I went back and forth with this one, but I got to just go with 1 cup of black coffee. I feel like it's just it's one of these movies that the movie builds over time, and you may find yourself in the first portion of the movie saying, I thought this was a disaster movie, and you might, need a little bit of caffeine, and it'll really put you in the scene in this movie. Just be careful not to spill it on your hand.
Very important. Coffee, 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 coffee. My drink to pair would be a hot toddy.
Oh, nice.
So just like you said, it takes a little while to ease into the disaster. So sit back, relax, don't rush yourself, have some Irish whiskey, some black tea, and a little bit of honey. The Irish whiskey and black tea, sort of an ode to our main actor, Pierce Brosnan, with his Irish and English heritage. So,
ooh, I like that.
Enjoy yourself, and there's no rush. Just sit back and leisurely watch this disaster movie.
Yeah, what a ride. Get ready.
Get ready. A lot of fun.
It turns day into night, air into fire. Nothing in the world can compare to its power. The most awesome sight you will ever see may be your last. In the town of Dante's Peak, a volcano is turning nature into a nightmare. Come on! Pierce Brosnan, Linda Hamilton.
Oh my God.
Dante's Peak. The pressure is building.
Welcome back. Slept on Cinema is brought to you by Training Ties, the ultimate shoe tying tool. If you know anyone who's struggling with shoe tying, Training Ties is the perfect solution. Or if you know anyone who just doesn't like tying their shoes, Training Ties keeps shoes tied all day long. Say no to Velcro and yes to independence with Training Ties. Welcome back.
That was awesome. We sort of teased this in the first half that it takes a little while to get going. And I kind of enjoyed that. It's almost like we got two movies there. Sort of got a little character study of small town and some background on the relationships. And then once things got cooking, the action did not stop.
Yeah, it's. I know it's obviously a fake mountain and not really believable, but it wasn't really a very fantastical movie. It wasn't over the top. It was all just like kind of believable, the stuff that was going on. And they kind of made it like realistic and almost more based around the relationship of Pierce and Linda Hamilton than it was a disaster movie.
Oh, yeah. From reading some of the background, I think they actually had a number of scientists on staff and they wanted this to be as realistic as they could and while working within the bounds of what people want in a disaster movie. And I think they did a really good job with that. Obviously it was, amplified or whatever, but it seemed pretty realistic to me.
Yeah, they made big scenes out of measuring the pH balance of some water like a pool boy. And that was very interesting. And are the tremors, are they deep? Are they shallow? This is what we spent our time talking about.
Yeah, I thought that was a great move on their part to sort of stick to the science to an extent.
The name Dalton in movies, a little ode to who he replaced as 007. And I was just watching Insidious, and the kid was Dalton. I just watched Roadhouse because how do you go like 2 months without seeing Roadhouse? Dalton,
right? Naturally,
it's a really great. It's a great name and amazing movie. And Harry Dalton is just salt of the earth. That is a
great name.
You want to get to the draft?
Let's do it.
All right, you got first pick.
All right, my first pick, and this to some extent came in one of the bolos, but I'm going to take the practical effects in the film. 1997 was right in the thick of CGI coming on the scene. And some movies did it well, but I think most at the time did it really poorly. And when you go back and watch movies now from 1997 or anywhere in the mid 90s, a lot of them just didn't age that well because they were trying to push the limits of CGI. And here they did so many of the special effects using actual practical effects, using miniatures, using camera techniques and things like that. And they filled in some of the gaps with CGI, but a lot of what you see is just a miniature version, like all that the scenes with the water and the flooding and the bridge going out. That was a whole tiny recreated scene with miniature cars, and I think it was between a third and a quarter of the size, and they recreated the whole thing. They had 800,000 gallons of water to simulate that flood, and the time that it took to pump the water back up to the top of the miniature set that they had set up took so long that they could only do this twice in one day. But I thought those scenes just looked so realistic. And the same with the pyroclastic cloud explosion. That was all done with air cannons. Yep. It was air cannons and clay dust. And it looked so real in a way that if they had just gone the CGI route, especially in 1997, it would look terrible. It would look, at the time, you'd be like, oh man, these effects are great. But now, decades later, you'd be like, well, what is this? This is like, I could make this on my iPhone.
Yeah, we see that in some of the movies we've done before from the 90s or before, a little bit after, like Jason versus Freddy. Like the effects are probably kind of cool then, but now with CGI being so improved, it just looks like hokey and goofy. But when like this movie, there's not much CGI. And that it's using miniatures and big, huge set pieces, like you said, have to be like timed and done perfectly. And you can see partly why they don't do it anymore, because it is so hard to pull off and because it's so expensive. But you also get the payoff of it being really impressive and it holding up.
Yeah, I thought the pyroclastic cloud and that flood were just, I watched those scenes a number of times. It was so impressive. And then, you contrast that with, I think, one of the first lava flow scenes when the lava rips through grandma's house and you're just like, Oh, I'm glad they did not do
Glad they
that.
stayed away from that for the bulk of the movie. And the ash, I'm not sure what they used for the ash, but that was pretty impressive too. I know that wasn't all CGI'd in.
Yeah, it was some. I forget what it was now, but they tested. I know they tested out a number of different products before they landed on whatever it was that looked just right.
Let's see, I'm not going to pick something here because I'm hoping you pick it, but I'm going to go with Dalton's truck. His truck, when he's in Dante's Peak before it gets ruined and it has the snorkel. That is such a badass truck. He drives it so well. I've never seen, I mean, this is like Ronin style driving. He doesn't get enough credit for his driving, and a lot of it due to the abilities of that truck. But when he told me, he was like, is there another way around besides that bridge? She's like, no. And he's the first one to take that turn and go across the river. And you just watching, like, what are you doing? The water's leaking in. He's still calm. He gets stuck, still calm. Calling the other drivers crazy for following his lead because he knows he has a snorkel on his truck. He's had a truck get destroyed before in a prior volcano. He's not going to be unprepared for this one. So he just souped up that truck. That crossing the river scene where the other car bumps into him and the truck catches on and moves up. That truck was just awesome.
Yeah, I had this next up on my list. I think that I had just all the cars in the film.
All the cars.
Yep. Some of the most intense scenes I thought too were in cars, like that fording the river scene. They shot that so that you feel like you're in the car when that water's rushing in and they're freaking out and they're stuck. That was terrifying.
It was. Yep.
That car was a 1987 GMC Suburban. I thought they did a great job in sort of small town America from like the mid 90s. Like they had a lot of
that car that followed him looked like a Monte Carlo, like a 1980s.
Yeah.
And he had no chance of making it across.
Yep. But they were like, I feel like it's those type of towns where you see cars that maybe are 10 years old that everyone's driving. And that's just like normal for that part of America. I thought his car was awesome. The mayor's car was a 1984 Toyota Land Cruiser. That thing was sick. That like could hold up to all the ash and and then that Chevy, a 1985 Chevy that drives through the lava at the end.
Yep.
Another just awesome car. And it was another one of these cars that fit in perfectly with the town, with the people, the story. Whoever was in charge of picking out the cars for this movie just nailed it.
And then showing all the cars just bash into each other when they're on panic mode trying to get out of town. It's just great.
Oh, and the scene at the very end where he's getting crushed in the car in the mine. I mean, that's another one of these scenes that you feel that. Like I was watching that, I was like, oh my God, like I feel the terror that he's feeling right now.
Yeah, it was very like was it Kill Bill 2-esque where like you're inside and all you hear is the dirt getting thrown on top of you and you feel the walls closing in and getting darker. I had that same exact feeling. Yeah,
would you say that Kill Bill ripped off Dante's Peak?
And more than one aspect, I think.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Probably just rip off. Also kind of an ode, an homage to greatness, I'm sure. My second pick is, I'm going to sort of combine this so I can squeeze the other one in, but the sound effects that are added to the movie with extra yells. And this happened in Time Cop too, where the sounds just really pop, which includes, which I brought up at the beginning, the Wilhelm yell. If you're not familiar, this is an incredibly famous sound effect that gets piped in many movies. So the part where you hear it is where Paul, he gets chucked into the water after he didn't make it on the bridge. And there's that like, that noise comes from Charge at Feather River, Private Wilhelm. It's a movie from, I think, 1953, where this low-level character gets shot in the leg with an arrow and has this like kind of funny scream of just, and then it ends up getting picked up most famously in almost every single Star Wars movie. And I think every single Indiana Jones movie. It also was included in Batman Returns, Reservoir Dogs, Aladdin. Once you hear the scream, I went on a deep dive and just like did compilation Wilhelm scream. And I suggest this for every person out there. This is such a hilarious compilation video of this noise, of this yell getting piped into a movie. Anytime like someone just gets thrown across the screen in Star Wars, you'll hear this. It got so big where one of the Star Wars didn't include it, and there was a backlash, of course, because everyone's so into Star Wars.
Right.
Like, no, we went with a different scream, and people weren't very happy. But it's in so many things, including, like I said, I think every Indiana Jones and most every Star Wars.
That's wild. Yeah, never heard of this. Definitely gonna have to check it out. It's also crazy. That means you could have in February 1997, you could have gone to 3 different movies in the theaters and heard the same scream.
Yeah, and it's multiple times in the same movie. It's not just one. Star Wars movies, multiple times. You probably got 5 or 6 yells, and that's all in that same theater. If you catch the date right.
Yeah. Wow, that's a great pick. I feel like not only is it a great pick, I feel like I just learned something. I'm going to go for my second pick. I'm just going to go with festivals. The movie starts off small town, Frontier Days Festival. I'm just a sucker for festivals. I love festivals. I love carnivals. If I'm driving through somewhere and I see any kind of festival, it could be a berry festival, a garlic festival, a tap dance festival, grandma's festival. I don't care what the festival is. I'm going to go check that out, and I'm probably going to have an awesome time.
Yeah, I think it's because you're going to see like community and wholesomeness, and you can get a good like local bite. Usually not too crowded. I couldn't agree more. This goes along with your love of general stores too. Like,
fits right.
You can get a general store that has a festival nearby. It's just going to be the best day.
Yeah, I also sort of like seeing these random little slices of some cultural thing that I maybe don't know a whole lot about. But you go to a festival and there are people who, whatever that random thing is, it's like their entire life, and that they know everything about it and just want to talk to you about it. It's fun seeing people so excited about something that you just like don't even know about.
I wish there was a way for me to go to a festival that celebrates being the second best place to live, population under 20,000, and then having all the residents tell me why that's the case, and then basically shitting on the number one.
Yep. Oh, I love that. I thought that element of this, it was the perfect element of sort of like tongue in cheek, because like the way everyone sort of said it exactly the same way with this, where like the number 2 best place to live by Money Magazine, population under 20,000. Like everyone said that. And as you said, they're like, oh, well, what's number 1? It's like, I don't know, some like crappy other town.
Some place in Montana. Who cares?
Yeah, that was one of my favorite parts of the film. Like, absolutely. I thought that was just
festivals. That's a great one.
My third pick is, and this is one that I know it's another one of your favorites. There was just a great lampshading moment in this movie. Ever since learning about lampshading on this pod, I love when I see it. And there was a great one in here. It was when they sent that rover into the crater, and it's, this thing from NASA. It's like, looks kind of legit, but it's like getting hit with all these rocks. And it takes a just massive boulder, like right to the dome. And one of the guys just like, can't believe the camera is still working after taking a hit like that.
It only takes that one line to justify anything you want.
Yeah, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, sure. So I feel like anytime I see that now, I get a good chuckle.
Antennas are up for good lampshading. That was a great one though. Third pick, I'm going to go, she's wrong for staying there, obviously, but Grandma's house, I kind of understand why she's staying there. Like, that is such an incredible spot that they built when their son was younger, and they've been there for so long, and it's just such a cool spot right on the water and the mountains. It just looks like it smells great up there with the clean air, and it's got that log cabin, but really big log cabin feel. I think it's Grandma's house.
It's true, but like, she's not gonna stop the lava. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing she can do to save that house while she's there.
No, but yeah, she didn't think the mountain would do that to her. But just, take her out of it, and if she moved out and the house was available, Airbnb or maybe vacation, I just want to stay there. And there's no way you're not having a great time barbecuing and just enjoying the mountain.
Yeah, the whole grandma thing, I was very curious about the whole relationship there, including like what happened to the ex-husband, the grandma's son. The whole thing seemed very strange. It seemed like he's been out of the picture for 6 years, and the grandma doesn't even know where he is. And like, he has 2 kids, and like the grandma still lives in this town, the wife still lives in the town, his kids still live there, and he's just like straight up disappeared.
It's definitely very strange. I think when I was deep diving and reading about it, it was the grandma was apparently like a little resentful, thinking that Linda Hamilton drove the husband away for whatever nonsense reason.
Yeah, which is ridiculous because she's amazing.
Of course it is. I liked how Dalton gracefully handled the apology from Paul. This is my sleeper pick. This is a sleeper around here. But it's very easy to have that lack of, I don't know, moral fiber or whatever, and someone apologized to you and you're like, well, you should have done this sooner, and you get all angry at them. And he's like, Paul calls him. He's like, I just want to let you know I'm sorry. I was wrong. And Pierce is like, it's okay. And he just moved it along. And he's like, it's not about that right now. This is about the town. This is something bigger. He could have taken that time to be a little petty. And Pierce isn't petty.
Yeah, no, he totally was just like water under the bridge, if you will.
It's all good. We all make mistakes, man. I've made my fair share. No glass houses here.
Yeah, that's the scene where Paul ultimately gets it at the end. Like it was interesting because obviously he sort of got what was coming to him in a way. Like he's the villain in this. I mean, I guess him and the volcano, I suppose, but he sort of is the villain. But he's also like this really likable guy. He's like
but his little monologue he went on, it's silly. But if that did happen to him, you can see why he'd take his time to, like, he ruined a town by making a premature call. So I get it a little bit, but it just seemed like he made a mistake. He had a great relationship with him. He wasn't a jerk at any other time. It was just he made the wrong call.
Yeah, I think the only other things that to me seemed like him being a real jerk was he was such a dick about Dalton's vacation. Like he was first he was on vacation. He called him in off vacation. And then it was like, what are you doing here? I thought you were on vacation. He's like, oh, I got called in by Paul out of my vacation. And then he's at the town figuring all this up. And Dalton's just, oh, you need a vacation. It's like, yeah, no shit. You called me in off of my vacation.
The whole team was very hyper aware of Dalton's vacation schedule.
Yeah.
It's okay to take a vacation, Dalton. It's like, I know, guys, I got called back in. I don't want to be here.
Right.
He may also get a little extra boozy. It seemed a few times in the bar, he kind of let himself go a little far there. The close talking and the loud talking, hands on the shoulder too much. Apparently the actor died 9 months after this movie while a heart attack while driving.
I saw that.
Yeah, no good.
It was his movie death also, the scene. Like right after he dies, everyone's just sort of like, yep, well, that happened.
That'll happen.
Like go on their way.
Very questionable why he chose to take the van with like two-wheel drive as opposed to hopping in one of the Hummers.
Yeah, I mean his decision making in this throughout the film was just very, very questionable.
All right, your the last pick of the draft, your sleeper pick.
All right, sleeper pick, and this is probably my deepest sleeper. This is just a deep, deep journey to the center of the earth sleeper here. But I'm going with the two delinquents that came out of the mine with the son early on in the movie. They were just perfect. They were just such 90s delinquents. Like one had like some crappy band t-shirt on. They had long hair. They just looked like total 90s teenage losers. And they were perfect. I saw those guys like, oh man, I knew those guys.
Yeah, I thought so too. But I think they were just in there like, he came out with a crystal, right? Like he wasn't in there like smoking or drinking. He was just.
Well, they seem to have a little like clubhouse in there.
So like, it's funny. Like they weren't like, they didn't even seem like rude kids.
No, they just looked like delinquents.
Yeah, they looked like delinquents. Exactly. They were like kid versions of Rambo walking through that town. You just didn't look like it.
Yeah.
All right, let's get, what's our superlative this week?
Our superlative this week is favorite disaster element. So we talked about this a little bit, that it takes a bit for the movie to really get the action going. But once the action gets going, this just hits you over and over and over with all these different disasters. So this isn't just an earthquake movie. This isn't just a flood movie. You get all these different parts of the havoc from a volcano. So you get, I don't even know, a dozen different disasters all wrapped up in one movie. So there's a lot to choose from here.
I'll go first on this one. I'm taking the pyroclastic cloud. I just thought it was so well done. It didn't look CGI'd. I guess you said it wasn't.
Yeah, that was totally real.
Showed up and it just blew apart. It looked like T2 when a bomb goes off and just everything in its way gets annihilated. And they have that awesome scene where they return to the abandoned mine and just get shoved into there. And then you get to see his little hideout or whatever. But like that pyroclastic cloud was just so powerful. It was awesome.
Yeah. And I also love saying pyroclastic cloud.
Me too. Yeah.
And I feel like you can tell everyone in the movie loves saying pyroclastic cloud. But I just thought it looked so cool. It was like the way it was ever expanding. It was just like kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and expanding and expanding and expanding. And it just looked amazing.
You didn't know how far its reach was, if it would blow apart the mountain or how deadly it was.
Yeah,
it was great to have him and to have Dalton in the car when it's like, what is that? And he knows exactly. It's not like some sort of smoke fire or something. Or It's like, no, that is a pyroclastic cloud, and you don't want to be near one of those.
Hell no. That's a great pick. I'm going to take, for my favorite here, the Acid Lake. I love this one because it was kind of a surprise.
Row your boat.
Yeah, exactly. But you sort of, it's like, all right, there's all this like fire raining down and lava coming in. And then they get in this boat. And you're kind of like, well, that's a great move. You're in this boat. You're surrounded by water. Like, boom, you're safe. And then the acid comes. And you get some great quotations out of it. You get, volcanic activity has turned the lake into acid. Acid eats metal.
Yeah, they were able to bring us along that little mental journey, so we know they should be terrified.
Yeah, there was no there was nothing in hiding there. It was all out in the open what was going on, and I thought that scene with them sort of silently or close to silently going through the water, the lake, and the smoke or the acid reacting with the metal in the boat, and it just sort of eating it away. Was just super eerie. And then the kids start freaking out, and it's just this like really creepy scene. And then of course you get grandma jumping out and just like cooking herself in the lake.
Good.
Yeah.
I think they would have made it anyway, and she just wanted to be here on her way out. But they were 5 feet from that dock.
Yeah.
That is a part that I think some of the people who value this movie for its scientific accuracy were like, that's a part where like it would be like lemon juice. And it wouldn't be like that acidic, but either way, I thought it was a great moment. Some people also said that it like stretched on too long and it was a little slow or boring, that like row boat scene. But I completely am on your side. It was very eerie, and you didn't know exactly what was going to happen. Was that bottom going to sink out? And if it did, that was going to be horrific. The allusion to what was the problem when they just the kid looked over first and saw all the dead fish. Like it was just awesome. And the propellers on the motor just completely burned away. So
yeah, that whole scene was I thought that scene was amazing. All right, should we get into one change to make this movie a blockbuster?
One change to be a blockbuster. You want to go first or second?
I'll take this, and I think again this probably makes it more of a blockbuster, but I'm not even positive that I would make this change. But it takes a while for the movie to develop, and I think a lot of people when they go in to see an action disaster film, they want that volcano to go off like 15, 20 minutes into the movie. Things don't really get shaking until the second half of the film. So I think the easy move, you jump the volcano a little bit earlier, get that going, and just stretch that action out. Because that once things really get going, it is like glued to your television action. So I think you could just keep that going. Give us some more of the effects, throw some more money at it. And I think this is a dynamite movie.
Yeah, I paused it right when there was that first like earthquake in the school gymnasium. It was 57 minutes in before the volcano happened. And yeah, you can absolutely trim that time. I just picture people in 97 being like, am I in the wrong movie? And then just like leaving before the movie really starts.
Yeah, you get that little taste of the skinny dippers getting like flashed with the lava and the hot springs, but that's just a little taste. It like whets your appetite, and then you don't get to see anything again until, like you said, almost an hour into the movie. Yeah,
I guess the boiled skinny dippers wasn't enough to alert Paul to like, maybe we should tell the town to be ready for maybe being on alert. I'm getting my one chance to be a blockbuster is I'll say the one I didn't choose. So I'm going to recast Linda Hamilton. It's very weird. I love her as an actress, but I don't like seeing her as like the damsel in distress. She doesn't really do much. She's just sitting next to Pierce as he drives the whole time. She after seeing her in T2 just being this iconic just warrior, to her to just kind of, I don't know, it was just a very strange casting to see her, just a mom who's a little bit overwhelmed. Pretty cool that she is a mayor running a small business, but to need to be saved by Pierce Brosnan, I thought was just not the right person for that, to see Sarah Connor like that.
Yeah. I mean, she's totally one of those people that's just a victim of being in two of the greatest movies of all time and being one of the greatest characters of all time. I think I have seen both Terminator and T2 so many times that when I watched this, it was like, it wasn't it's Linda Hamilton as the small town mayor. It was like, wait, Sarah Connor is a small town mayor?
Yeah.
Like, I just can't, my like dumb brain just cannot separate the two of those. Like, in my mind, Linda Hamilton is Sarah Connor.
Yes.
So that was like,
maybe if it came out before T2 and after the original Terminator, when she was still kind of like the damsel in distress and she hadn't got all just jacked, maybe, but it was just very strange to see her in that role. But my real pick is the team of like scientists that they came along with. Just recast that whole crew. There should be someone funny, some sort of comic relief, something interesting about that crew of people besides liking coffee and a random Beavis reference and dropping the ball on that flashing red button. So it took 2 days to find him from that.
That was a pretty bad oversight.
That whole crew was just kind of like, ugh, I'm not excited to hear any of these guys speak.
Yeah. It's like, how long has that distress beacon been flashing?
Thank you, NASA. And it was like, dude, it's been like 1 to 2 days. Yeah. 1 to 2 days sounds like it's like, how late was that product that you turned in on, or 1 to 2 days? No, it was probably like 4. The guy probably was underselling that. Maybe it's been going on for 3 to 4 days.
Totally. There's no way if you actually thought that was 1 to 2 days, you'd be like, oh, I don't know, a few hours.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So that team of scientists, I felt like needed like a Jack Black or Jamie Kennedy, some guy from the 90s that like might make you laugh.
Yeah. I feel like they were like going for that, and it just didn't totally come together here.
Yeah. The only guy who they tried to have a personality, I thought, was coffee cappuccino guy.
Which is like, I kind of hated that line, but I loved that they stuck the coffee storyline in. I know that that's a divisive storyline for a lot of people, but I don't know. I found it endearing.
Yeah. I guess it is probably unexpected to get such good coffee up in the mountains like that.
He is one of the Seinfeld characters.
Which one is he?
He was in the smelly car episode.
Oh, he stole the car.
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's a great one.
The other one was Dr. Jane Fox, who strangely shows up quite a bit in this film. She was a waitress in the diner, one of the old, like it was one of the 1980s episodes.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I missed that one. I definitely had the high talker.
Yeah, that one was very obvious.
Yeah, that was great. All right, spin-off idea. I'll go first. Let's see. After the untimely death of Wanda, like years later, Wanda dies, and it's just Dalton fathering her kids. They're monitoring another volcano, and they're both being groomed to be volcanologists. And he's taken over as Dalton would do to raise the family. But we don't have any scenes where we show her dying, and it's just like one line. We'll just lampshade it, like, oh yeah, she died a few years ago. It was, we're just getting over it. But while they're monitoring this volcano that may erupt, their dad shows up finally after the mom dies to be like, hey guys, I'm here. And then I don't know what the storyline is. Maybe he had a drug problem, some gambling stuff. Maybe he was a spy and he couldn't tell them why he left. Who knows? Because, Linda Hamilton, Sarah Connor wasn't going to get with a schlub. So I have to imagine he had something important to do. But, the volcano goes off. It's on an island. They have to escape the island. And he gives his life, just like his mom did, to save the family. His daughter kind of liked him a little bit when he came back, but the son still held a grudge until he gave his life to save the family. And then they escaped the next volcano.
I like it because that gives us a chance to learn more about what happened with.
I need to know what happened. Why he just disappeared from Sarah Connor.
I'm so curious what happened there. Like it makes no sense to me, but the spy element, I like that.
Sure.
So my idea, very similar line of.
Hold on, sorry. The volcano erupts 15 minutes into that movie. Right away.
I have like a similar vein here, but the other direction. I'm going prequel. I want to see a lot more about what's going on in that first opening scene. And in particular, what really sparked my interest here, I want to know what's so important about that data. You know, Marion, it is literally like a diarrhea storm of volcano ash, giant blocks of rock falling everywhere. People are running out of there with their prized giant crosses. And she's in there saying, we need to keep the data. What about the data? And I think there's something special about that data. I think there's something else going on here.
You know what that data might have contained if she was given a chance to find it? Was the clues to what they would have got ahead of the Dante's Peak one if they were able to collect that data and brought it with them. Like something was in there that they could have used to get to realize that Dante's Peak was going to blow.
Yeah. I mean, there's got to be something about that data. No one is going back into that place talking about any kind of data. It's like, what more data do you need? Like, it's raining data all over us here. So I think, obviously you get a good explosion. There's a whole bunch of fun stuff. You're in Paraguay. I forget. I think there was somewhere in South America.
Colombia, I think.
Colombia. And, you're going to get a lot of the same fun sort of explosions. I think there's something there in the data, and I want to know what it is.
I think that's great. You could definitely run that back, or at least see the prequel of it. That was awesome, and I'm excited you got to see it for the first time. I know it wasn't what you were thinking you were going to be watching.
Oh yeah, it was great. So it was just like sitting down to see a movie. Like, yeah, I've definitely seen this before. And watching it, like, nope, definitely never seen this.
In next episode's movie, we're going to be doing Disturbing Behavior. It's in the time of high school horror thriller movies from the late 90s that I am very excited to watch.
Yeah, another gem from just a great era for that type of film. I feel like they don't make a lot. They make some of these, but they don't make a lot of those type of films. And back then they made them just right. And
I think those films have become like Netflix series now.
Yeah, that's definitely right.
But it's got Katie Holmes and the dude who played Cyclops in the X-Men movies.
Yeah, I mean, I had the Disturbing Behavior poster in my room for a very long time. So
the video store I worked at had that as well. All right, that was awesome, and hope you guys had fun too. And later.